Admiral Benito Mussolini's navy believed Taranto was safe from torpedoes. They were wrong. On the 11th of November 1940, 21 Fairey Swordfish biplanes struck the Italian battle line at anchor. They launched from HMS Illustrious and flew in two waves over the Mar Grande. Each Swordfish carried an 18-inch aerial torpedo or 250-pound bombs, timed for a shallow harbor. At 2,300 hours, searchlights and 4.7-inch anti-aircraft guns opened fire. The unexpected factor was British modifications, wooden fins and reduced depth settings that kept torpedoes running in 40 feet. The 11th of November 1940, 20:30 hours. Admiral of the Fleet Sir Andrew Brown Cunningham ordered an airstrike at Taranto, Italy, 300 miles southeast of Malta. Admiral Sir Andrew Brown Cunningham had ordered damage to at least 2 capital ships. His force consisted of HMS Illustrious with 21 Fairey Swordfish, plus cruisers and destroyers screening the carrier. On the opposing side, Ammiraglio d'Armata Inigo Campioni commanded 6 battleships in the Taranto area, including Littorio and Conte di Cavour, anchored inside balloon barrages. Their defensive setup included 90mm and 37mm anti-aircraft guns and searchlights covering the harbor. The Royal Navy expected one torpedo run to fail because harbor depth was about 12 meters. But modified 18-inch torpedoes with stabilizing fins and shallow depth gear made reliable runs possible. Intelligence gathered from aerial reconnaissance on the 9th to the 10th of November indicated battleship berths and balloon locations. However, this didn't account for gaps in netting and the limited night fighting training of some batteries. The harbor's inner basin forced low approach angles under 1,000 feet. A light wind and clear visibility helped the attacking pilots hold headings on the aiming points. What happened in the next 90 minutes would determine Mediterranean naval initiative. At 2,258 hours, the first wave crossed the coast at 90 knots and 1,500 feet, then dropped to 100 feet for torpedo release. Number 815 Naval Air Squadron, led by Lieutenant Commander Kenneth Williamson, began attacks in pairs. Each crew used a fixed forward Vickers machine gun and carried a single 18-inch torpedo set for shallow running. Ammiraglio d'Armata Inigo Campioni's gunners fired 90mm shells with timed fuses while searchlights tracked aircraft at 2,000 yards. By 2,325 hours, Littorio had taken one torpedo hit and fuel oil spread across the basin. At 2,340 hours, the second wave arrived as balloon cables forced approaches along predictable lanes. At 2,355 hours, a torpedo struck Conte di Cavour. Within minutes her crew reported flooding and loss of electrical power to pumps. At 0015 hours, Cunningham's staff aboard HMS Warspite received the signal, "Attack executed," by LAMP. Italian shore stations reported 3 battleships damaged, but didn't know aircraft losses were limited. But at 0010 hours, repair parties began triage that would reveal which ships were out for months. At 0112 hours on the 12th of November 1940, Capitano di Corvetta Angelo Iachino, duty officer aboard battleship Littorio, logged starboard list at 7 degrees and rising. Sounding tubes reported 1.8 meters water above the inner bottom. In boiler room number 3, gauges showed steam pressure falling through 12 kilograms per square centimeter. Within 10 minutes, Iachino realized the torpedo defense system had been breached in 3 compartments, not 1. Italian damage control tables expected 1,000 tons flooding per hit. Estimates now passed 3,500 tons. Ammiraglio d'Armata Inigo Campioni was informed by telephone from the Mar Grande control station at 0125 hours. At 0135 hours, 7 degrees Gruppo Sommergibili's harbor patrol boat Moss 512 reported a broken anti-torpedo net section, 60 meters long, near the San Pietro Pier. Littorio's crew counter flooded port voids, pumping 420 tons ballast to reduce list. Shore batteries ceased fire. Searchlights were redirected to verify no further aircraft remained overhead. The decisive equipment was the 18-inch Mark 12 aerial torpedo fitted with a duplex nose pistol and a modified hydrostatic depth unit. British artificers set running depth to 10 feet and added wooden anti-roll fins, stabilizing entry at 90 knots from 100 feet. That combination minimized dive angle and prevented bottom strikes in 12-meter water. Strategically, the discovery exposed a defensive assumption. Regia Marina planners believed Taranto's 40-foot shallows and netting made torpedo hits improbable, estimating fewer than 2 hits from 20 aircraft. The reality was 3 battleships struck in 57 minutes. At Matipan in March 1941, Italian night readiness again lagged, with 3 heavy cruisers lost. Evidence came from Italian after-action summaries compiled by Capitano di Boscello Emilio Brenta on the 13th of November, noting, "ready incomplete," around Littorio and reporting 2 torpedo openings measured at 8.5 meters. The Royal Navy's report of proceedings for HMS Illustrious listed torpedo settings, 10 feet, 33 knots, confirming the technical parameters used. At 0200 hours, the Taranto Arsenal dispatched 1,200 dockyard workers and 6 floating pumps to Littorio and Conte di Cavour. On Littorio, Capitano di Boscello Giacomo Fassan ordered shoring in compartments 4 and 5 and rigged emergency power cables to 2 30-kilowatt dynamos. By 0330 hours, flooding was stabilized at roughly 4,000 tons, keeping the ship on an even keel and preventing contact with the harbor bottom. At 0405 hours, Ammiraglio d'Armata Inigo Campioni ordered battleship Vittorio Veneto to sortie to Naples at 12 knots with a destroyer screen, rather than remain concentrated at Taranto. The original plan kept 6 battleships within the Mar Grande. The revised plan dispersed the force into 2 ports. Fuel and ammunition lighters were reassigned, delaying reload cycles by 18 hours. By 1,200 hours, Littorio was immobilized with 3 torpedo holes and Conte di Cavour was settled in shallow water. Caio Duilio required immediate docking. Regia Marina records later counted 59 dead and 600 wounded across the base. Cunningham's staff calculated Italian operational battleships reduced from 6 to 3 for at least 90 days, shifting convoy escort ratios in the central Mediterranean. The full implications would only be understood when classified files were opened decades later. Documents recovered in 1976 revealed that Taranto's anti-torpedo nets were knowingly incomplete before the raid. A Taranto Arsenal memorandum of 6 November, filed in the Ufficio Storico della Marina Militare, recorded only 4,200 meters of netting on hand against a planned 8,600, after autumn storms and corroded floats. Campioni's staff minutes noted, "Priorita munizioni," over net repair. The official narrative long stressed shallow water as the decisive shield. These papers show the real vulnerability was logistical, leaving repeated gaps aligned with the San Pietro Pier and battleship moorings. Medical and engineering logs from the 12th to the 13th of November show the damage control crisis was worse than Italian communiques admitted. Littorio's compartmental flooding table, appended to Brenta's after-action summary, lists 4,381 tons shipped by 0330, while the press statement implied, limitati allegamenti. Conte di Cavour's dockyard docket counted 1,100 men diverted from other ships to keep her settled, contradicting claims she was soon repairable. Across the base, the Sanità Militare Register tallied 59 dead and 581 wounded, about 12% higher than early figures, and it constrained immediate sortie readiness. For decades, it was believed Taranto proved a single tactical innovation. Shallow-running torpedoes made battleships in harbor obsolete. However, declassified files in 1990 from the Admiralty's Air Staff papers, and Italian net procurement records opened in Rome, showed a compound failure. Incomplete barriers, predictable balloon lanes, and fragmented command of shore batteries. Thomas P. Lowry's 2000 study argued the technical fix mattered less than a rehearsed night approach and precise reconnaissance. The debate now parallels Pearl Harbor. 21 Swordfish achieved 3 battleship torpedoings, while 183 Japanese aircraft disabled 8 battleships, yet both attacks exploited misread warning signals and thin readiness cycles. The current consensus is that Taranto's outcome cannot be reduced to torpedoes alone. It was an operational systems shock. Scholars continue to dispute the weight of intelligence versus Italian dockyard capacity, using the UK National Archives Admiral Series and Freiburg's Naval Air Defence comparisons. Sottotenente di Vascello Angelo Iachino, duty officer aboard Littorio, age 28, faced a choice at 0115 on the 12th of November 1940. Keep pumps on the flooded starboard voids or sacrifice power to isolate electrics before seawater reached switchboards. In his letter dated the 14th of November, preserved in the Ufficio Storico della Marina Militare, he wrote, "Se salta il quadro, perdiamo tutto. Ho ordinato di tagliare." The cut saved the main distribution board but reduced pumping, and the list increased by roughly 1 degree before counter-flooding stabilized it. His decision enabled 2 dynamos to be rigged by 0330, restoring partial lighting to 3 compartments. After the war he remained in the marina, retired as Capitano di Vascello in 1967, and his testimony remains central to post-war damage control training. His experience was typical of the 1,200 men who faced this dilemma, influencing later doctrine. Operationally, Taranto compressed Cunningham's Mediterranean timetable by weeks. With Littorio, Caio Duilio, and Conte di Cavour out, Regia Marina's ready battleships fell from 6 to 3, forcing Campioni to reassign 2 heavy cruisers and 8 destroyers from offensive sweeps to convoy cover and port defense. British planners had forecast 120 to 150 Swordfish casualties over a winter of attrition. Instead, the raid lost 2 aircraft about 98% below projection while inflicting 59 Italian dead and disabling 50% of the battle line. The longer shift followed in 1941–42. Dispersal to Naples and La Spezia reduced Italian concentration options, and by the 1st of April 1941 the Admiralty issued revised carrier night attack instructions codifying shallow water torpedo settings and 2-wave sequencing. Operations planned for December 1940 against Central Mediterranean convoys occurred in mid-November, a difference of roughly 3 weeks, because British commanders could risk surface forces without facing a 6-battleship sortie from Taranto. Historian Thomas P. Lowry calculates that if Taranto's netting had been complete and balloon lanes altered, the British would have achieved at most 1 battleship hit, leaving 5 Italian capital ships operational and delaying aggressive convoy interception in the central Mediterranean by 4 to 6 weeks. Most naval historians now treat Taranto as significant chiefly for proving coordinated carrier night strike against a defended harbor, not for ending battleships. Compared with Matapan, where about 26,000 Italian tons of cruisers were sunk in hours, Taranto neutralized roughly 90,000 tons of battleships for months without a surface engagement. Angelo Iachino returned to La Spezia in 1946 and stayed in the post-war Marina Militare as a damage control and engineering instructor. Promoted through the 1950s, he retired as Capitano di Vascello in 1967 and, in a 1974 interview, recalled, "Ho tagliato la corrente per salvare la nave." He died in Rome on the 9th of May 1986. His wartime letter of the 14th of November 1940 is still cited in Italian training notes on isolating power during flooding. At Taranto, the Sacrario dei Caduti del Mare Memorial Complex was rededicated on the 11th of November 1960 with the 1940 Roll of the Fallen. In 1942, the Royal Navy formalized carrier strike planning around rehearsed night navigation and shallow torpedo profiles derived from Taranto. On the 11th of November 1940, 21 men achieved 3 battleship torpedoings, shifting the Mediterranean convoy balance by a 3-ship margin.